Okay. I'll read the numerical, maybe whatever the text written, it's background dark, you cannot see, but below circuit, whatever is there, you can observe it. A coil of 10 ohm resistance and inductance 0.1 Henry. Means one coil is given and it is having resistance and inductance that is mentioned, and value of resistance and inductance is given. Okay. Is connected in series with a 150 microfarad capacitor across 200 volt 50 hertz AC supply. So all parameters will calculate. Okay. So impedance, then current, power factor, total power consumed, voltage across coil and voltage across capacitor. Okay. So here L you know, C you know. Using it, can you calculate XL and XC?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what is the value of XL and XC? You can see here omega L and 1 divided by 2 omega C. Using this, you can calculate frequencies given 50 hertz, L and C you know. So compare XL and XC, which one is greater? XL is greater or XC?
XL is greater.
XL.
Correct, XL is greater. So circuit is called as more inductive or more capacitive.
More inductive.
Correct, it's a more inductive means total current will lag total voltage or lead.
Current lags.
Correct, current will lag, isn't it? Total current will lag total voltage. So nature of power factor will be what? Lagging or leading? We specified in terms of current. If current lags,
Lagging.
then lagging. Right. So here, as total current lags total voltage, so it's a lagging power factor. Okay. And as XL is greater, so you can find Z, its a real and imaginary part, both will be positive or negative. R, the real part is always positive. What's about imaginary part? Positive or negative?
Positive for inductance.
Correct. What is the formula for Z? R plus J XL minus XC. So XL you know, XC you know. You can put here value of XL and XC and you can calculate Z. In rectangular form, you can see its real and imaginary part both are positive. So if you calculate the phi, you will get it positive. So using calculator, you can convert this rectangular to polar. Say polar of this 10, 10.2. So you will get these values, magnitude, and for angle, press recall tab. If it is not displaying magnitude, angle. Okay, if it is not displaying angle, then press recall tab in calculator. So you can see impedance, its angle is positive and imaginary part is positive, means it's a more inductive. Okay. So total impedance you know, total voltage you know. So if you do total voltage divided by total impedance, what you will get?
Total current.
Total current.
Correct, total current you will get. Very good. So see here, total voltage 200 at an angle of 0 degree and total impedance in polar form. Okay, so what you can do here, this angle magnitude you can divide, so you will get it 14, and angle you have to shift from denominator to numerator, so its sign will change. Okay, so negative angle you will get for current. How to calculate current, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Suppose options given to you are only in terms of magnitude, then only this one you can do. But if options given to you are in polar or rectangular form, then compulsory you have to do division in polar form, and then polar to rectangular easily you can convert. Now power factor angle, I told you previously also, whatever the Z is there, its polar form directly, this angle you can consider as a power factor angle phi. So cos phi, and nature is lagging. And
Lagging.
what's about active power? VI cos phi. Here RMS value of voltage and current you have to select. So 200 volt RMS current is 14 and first pi is 0.7. So active power unit is watt. Suppose you get asked here to calculate reactive power or apparent power. For reactive power VI sin phi and apparent power VI. Okay. Now which one part left? Voltage drop across coil and voltage drop across capacitor. So coil resistance and XL we know. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So you can convert this rectangular form to polar form using calculator. Now once you know this impedance of coil in polar form multiplied by current, so you will get the voltage drop across coil, isn't it? Mostly voltage drop across coil, no one will ask you in polar form. Okay, very rare possibility. Only mostly possibility is only magnitude. But if you get asked, you must be able to calculate it. Okay. So current in polar form we know. Impedance in polar form we know. Magnitude you can multiply. 461 point something you will get. And what you have to do with angle? Here both are positive. So simply add them. You will get 117 point something. Okay, so voltage across coil, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then voltage across capacitor. Now current in polar form, all of you know. And XC magnitude you know, and what will be its polar form? We have seen XC always comes along negative imaginary axis. That is minus JXC. Nothing but 0 minus JXC. So minus JXC means what? Magnitude at an angle of minus 90 degree. You convert it in polar form. You will get it XC at an angle of minus 90 degree. And XC we know 21.22. So multiply magnitude 14 into 21.22. You will get 297 point something. And angle both are negative. So that's why your resultant sign will be negative. And add them 135.57 degree. Any difficulty with this sum?
No, ma'am.
Okay. The material, whatever the material I have given to you, using it, you solve it. Now all numericals you can attempt. No difficulty you will have. Still, if you have any difficulty, ask me. Next, again I will read it if the sum is not clear. A coil of power factor 0.6. Power factor of coil is not 0. Means coil is not purely inductive. Isn't it? Power factor of a coil mentioned is 0.6. Means there is a resistance and inductance. Otherwise, if it is a purely inductive coil, you know phase difference for purely inductive is 90 degree and cos of 90 degree is 0. So power factor is not 0, it's 0.6. What does it mean? That some resistance is also there. You have to consider for the coil. Okay, so R and L in series with a capacitor of 100 microfarad capacitor. When connected to a 50 Hz supply, potential difference across coil is equal to potential difference across capacitance. Okay, so this one thing we have to use, voltage drop across coil and voltage drop across capacitor are equal. Find the resistance and inductance of a coil. Okay. So here, what is given to you? Capacitor is given, capacitance. So can you calculate XC?
Yes, ma'am.
C is given to you 100 microfarad. Frequency is given 50 Hertz. Using this, you can calculate XC. Capacitive reactance unit will be ohm. Okay. Then what is given to you? Voltage drop across coil and voltage drop across capacitor. These two are equal. So you can equate it. Equate these two. So what will be the voltage drop across coil? What will be the formula for voltage drop across coil? Can anyone say, tell? Current flowing is I and impedance of coil, suppose Z coil. Then that what will be the formula of V coil?
I into R plus XL.
R plus JXL.
X.
Isn't it? That is I into Z coil. Very good. Okay, I into Z coil it will be, and Z coil is what? R minus, sorry, XL is there, na? R plus JXL will be the Z coil, isn't it? And current flowing through capacitor is I, and its reactance is XC. So what will be the value of VC?
XC.
I into XC. See here, everyone can see.
XC.
XC. Okay. So I into Z coil is V coil, and I into XC is VC. Equate these two. So XC you know here, I will cancel, isn't it? From both the
Yes.
sides, I will cancel, and XC just now we have calculated, means you got the value of XC. So you got the value of Z coil, isn't it? Now for coil, its impedance, its magnitude we got, and power factor for coil is given. How much? 0.6. So if power factor for coil 0.6, so using this you can calculate the phi, 53.13, and this angle you can use for Z also. Z, its magnitude is this one, and angle is this one. Z of coil in polar form, you got it, isn't it? See here, 31.83 at an angle of 53.13. Isn't it? Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now
Yes,
Z
ma'am.
coil you got. Z coil, it's the impedance of coil. Coil is nothing but it's a combination of R and L. So formula for Z coil is R plus JXL. Means you can convert this polar form to rectangular form. Convert this polar to rectangular. Now what will be, whatever the rectangular form you got of Z coil, its real part will be what? 19 point something.
19.09.
No, which parameter it will be?
Resistance.
Resistance.
The resistance. Very good. And what will be the imaginary part?
Inductance.
Inductive reactance, not inductance, isn't it? XL it will be. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So 25.47 is a XL, that is inductive reactance in ohm. So once you got XL as frequency, you know, using the formula XL is equals to omega L, you can calculate the inductance, and it will be 0.081 Henry. Okay. So any difficulty with this sum?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Fine. So the rest numericals you solve. Okay, so transformer, third one unit, single phase transformer is there in your syllabus. Okay. So here see, this is called as the symbol of a transformer. Whenever transformer you wanted to represent in electric and electronic circuit, this one is the symbol used. What is the application of transformer? It is used to step up voltage or to step down the voltage. From generation up to distribution, you can find step up and step down. Three-phase transformers are used. In your syllabus, single phase transformer is there. Single phase transformer, three-phase transformer, what is the difference from construction point of view? From construction point of view, major differences in single phase transformer, single winding is there. All of you can see single winding is there on primary and single winding is there on secondary. It is having many turns. See, this one primary winding, it is having many turns. These are marked as N1 turns. It can be few hundreds, 800 turns, 500 turns, 300 turns. Okay. And this side also secondary winding. Here it is having also many turns. Again the same thing. Some hundreds, 800, 900, 1000. So N2 number of turns. Turns on secondary mark as N2. So single primary winding and single secondary winding is there in single phase transformer. If it is a three-phase transformer, you will find 3 windings are there on primary side and 3 windings are there on secondary side. Okay, this is a major difference from construction point of view. Now you can see it like this. See, transformer construction, if you see, whatever the major component is its core, magnetic core. It is, see, whatever I have highlighted, that one is called as magnetic core. It is square or rectangular shape. It is made up of silicon steel material. And it is not solid, it is laminated. Why laminated construction? To reduce the eddy current loss. Why silicon steel? To reduce hysteresis loss. Eddy current loss, hysteresis loss, we'll see in detail soon for a transformer. Now you can see on this square or rectangular shape magnetic core, primary winding and secondary winding are wound. See here on your left hand side, it's a primary winding with n1 number of turns, and across it AC voltage source is applied. This is the symbol, all of you can see. It is the symbol for AC voltage source. Here I have written capital V1, means it's the RMS value of voltage. So the winding across which you apply AC voltage, AC input voltage, is called as primary winding. And the winding across which you get output, across the second winding you will get the output. This one winding is called as the secondary winding, or across this we can connect the load. Suppose I am going to connect one lamp here across it. Okay, one lamp, this is the symbol for lamp. One lamp I have connected across the 2 terminals of windings, secondary winding. So the winding across which you are getting output or across which you can connect load is called as secondary winding, and the winding across which you give input is called as primary winding. Okay, so here,
मैम
yes.
मैम वो अटेंडेंस लिंक में टाइमिंग का तो ऑप्शन ही नहीं है, तो कहाँ फिल करना है टाइम?
नहीं, अभी आप एक, what I told you not to enter the time. What I told, you mark your attendance between 8 to 9. अभी 8 to 9 है ना, this one 8:45 हुआ है. Okay, so you have to mark your attendance. अभी mark करना है और फिर another attend, मैं 9:30 बजे और आपको रिमाइंड करती हूँ, तब आप दूसरे और एक बार मार्क
ओके मैम,
ठीक है.
यस
That I
मैम,
mean to say.
यस.
ठीक है. Okay. So see, primary and secondary winding जो है, these are made up of copper, and these are insulated with some insulating material. Now, whatever the insulating material used for this primary and secondary copper winding, its thickness, it depends on for how much voltage you are using this transformer. Suppose in this subject, 5th one experiment, you are going to perform on transformer direct loading method. So you will find in that experiment, on primary side you are going to apply 110 volt, and on secondary you will get 220 volt. Every transformer, it is not open. All this complete assembly, it is enclosed by one tank, and inside that tank, along with this assembly, transformer oil is also there. Okay, so on that outer metallic tank, you can find one rectangular nameplate, and on that nameplate, specifications of the transformer written. So for example, whatever you are going to use for 5th one experiment, you can find specification of that transformer is 1 kVA 110 volts / 220. Means its kVA rating is 1. What do you mean by kVA rating? That also we'll see. And if like this is written 110 volt slash 220 volt, what does it mean? On primary side, maximum voltage 110 volt you can apply, and across secondary at no load condition you will get maximum voltage 220 volt. That is the meaning of it. Okay, so primary winding voltage is known, secondary winding voltage is known. So based on this voltage, thickness of primary winding and thickness of secondary winding depends. Okay, so how much voltage you are going to apply across primary, how much voltage you will get across secondary, based on these thickness of this primary and secondary winding done. Means that thickness of that insulation, it depends on these values. Okay, now here primary and secondary winding both are made up of copper, and they are insulated with some insulating material, and these windings are wound on two side limbs. See here, whatever the vertical portion of this magnetic core, this is called as side limbs. So primary and secondary winding both are wound on two side limbs. Okay. Um, now we'll see about its construction first. So primary winding and secondary winding both are made up of copper. Why copper? Because its conductivity is more, resistance is less. So if resistance is less, then copper losses will be less, then efficiency will be more. That's why these windings are made up of copper, and they are insulated with some insulating material. Okay, now this insulating material, its thickness depends on how much voltage you are going to apply across primary and how much voltage you are going to apply across secondary. Now that rectangular shape, centered one, rectangular shape like this, magnetic core of transformer like this. It is either square or rectangular, and it is not solid, it is laminated construction. Laminated construction means what? Why it is made up of silicon steel? Because silicon steel, its relative permeability is very high. See now, this is the core. See, if you observe this core, it is having vertical side link, isn't it? This one. So what is done? Vertical plate of this one dimension and thickness 0.3 mm to 0.5 mm get manufactured. Number of plates, because this one vertical plate is required on your left also and on your right also, isn't it? So like this, these of these dimensions and of thickness 0.3 mm to 0.5 mm, like this plates get manufactured. We want horizontal also. So horizontal one of this dimension, this one length you can say, and whatever some width also, thickness is 0.3 to 0.5 mm. Okay, so horizontal plates also required for this. So that one plate, whatever are the dimensions, get manufactured of again the same thickness 0.3 mm to 0.5 mm. Once this number of plates get manufactured, what is done? On their both the sides, varnish get put. Varnish, it acts as a insulating material, and like this, suppose 20 plates, they stack together. First of all, consider करो ये ऐसे suppose 20 plates manufacture किए, or more than that 100 plates suppose. So and varnish get put on both the sides of these plates. These plates, its thickness is 0.3 to 0.5 mm, and then like this 20 number of plates, they stack together, and like this they form one side link. This one also, this one also, and this one also. Means complete construction you can find, it is not solid, it is laminated construction. 20 plates for example of thickness, each of thickness 0.3 mm to 0.5 mm, and varnish is there on both the sides of the plate. To reduce eddy current loss, laminated core construction is used. If you are using solid core, you will find eddy current loss is more. So to minimize eddy current loss, laminated core construction is used. Laminated core construction means what? Each and every plate, its thickness 0.3 to 0.5 mm, varnish on the both sides, and then 20, for example, 20 plates they stack together. Like this. Okay. So how it reduces eddy current loss, we'll see soon. Again, see here now, which one voltage we have applied across primary winding? Which one voltage we have applied across primary winding here? AC, DC?
V1.
V1. But it is AC or DC? Symbol you can observe. Observe the symbol. AC voltage source, isn't it?
AC.
AC voltage.
AC.
AC voltage source it is. Transformer, it works only on AC. Alternating. Transformer do not work on DC current. Okay, compulsory AC you have to apply, and output is also AC. Okay. Now see here, whenever here N1 is a primary number of turns, N2 secondary number of turns. So primary winding from this end, suppose I am going to mark this one end as A and another end as B. So from end A to end B, primary winding is continuous copper wire. It is having N1 number of turns, and in between or across A and B, AC voltage source is connected. Similarly on secondary side also, suppose I am going to mark this one as a C and this one as a D terminal. So secondary winding is also continuous from C up to D. Okay, so whatever the resistance between C and D of secondary side copper winding, it is marked as R2. Similarly, suppose this is A and B point. So whatever the resistance from A up to B point of primary winding, it is marked as resistance R1. Okay, so R1 and R2, these are the copper resistance of primary and secondary winding. Now all of you can see here, AC voltage source is applied across primary winding. As voltage source is circuit closed one now across primary winding, circuit closed one hai kya?
Yes, ma'am.
It is closed one, means can current completes its path through primary winding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so current will flow, isn't it? You switch on voltage V1, AC voltage you have to switch on. AC current will flow through that conductor. Now, what will happen? Through any conductor, whenever you pass current through it, what it produces around it?
Magnetic field.
Magnetic field.
Very good. It produces around it magnetic field. So same thing will happen here. AC voltage you have applied, AC current is flowing, and that's why primary winding produces magnetic field. If you pass DC current, that is direct current, which is having constant magnitude and constant direction, current through any conductor, whatever the magnetic field get produced because of a direct current, that is stationary magnetic field. But if you are passing AC current, alternating current, its magnitude and direction continuously changes. So whenever you pass AC current through any conductor, around it produces changing magnetic field. That is the difference, isn't it? DC current you pass, around it get produced stationary magnetic field. AC current you pass, it produces changing magnetic field. Okay. So here also the same thing will happen. Current, which one current is flowing, AC or DC?
AC.
AC. So it will, this primary winding will produce changing magnetic field or stationary magnetic field?
Changing magnetic field.
Correct, changing magnetic field. And how can we find out the direction of that magnetic field? Which law is used? Have you studied a right hand thumb rule? Some of you may have studied. See here. Right hand thumb rule, consider this is a conductor means parallel to ground. Assume one conductor parallel to ground. Hold it in your hand parallel to ground and you can say perpendicular to your face like this. Okay. And pass current through that conductor. Use arrow conventions. Arrow convention means what? Consider arrow is moving away from you. What you can see its tail and how the tail of that arrow looks like a cross. See here cross conventions are used. So this is the round one, circular is nothing but it's a cut section of conductor and through it current is flowing. Cross is represented. Cross, what it indicates here? Current direction through that conductor. So current is moving away from observer. When arrow moves away from you, its tail you can see. That's why arrow conventions are used. Cross means what? Current is moving through that conductor away from observer. Now consider arrow is moving toward you. So what you can see? Arrow, its tip of arrow you can see. That's why dot here is used. Means what does it mean? This circular one is nothing but, this circle is nothing but it's a cut section of a conductor. And whatever the cross and dot, what it indicates? Current direction through that conductor. So when current is moving away from observer, cross. When current is moving toward the observer, dot. Okay. Now you can apply here right hand thumb rule. So what is the right hand thumb rule? Point the thumb in the direction of current and wrap the fingers around the conductor. Hold conductor parallel to ground. Assume it means how you have to hold so that it is perpendicular to plane of your face, isn't it? And consider current is moving through that conductor away from you. And then point the thumb in the direction of conductor that is away from you and then wrap the fingers. The direction in which you are wrapping the finger, same will be the direction of magnetic field produced around that current carrying conductor. Is this clear? So in consider, apply here right hand thumb rule. Point the thumb away from you and wrap the fingers. In which direction you are wrapping the finger? Clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Clockwise.
Clockwise, very good. So same will be the direction of magnetic field produced around the current carrying conductor. So all of you can see here, see this is the conductor carrying current away from the observer and whatever the magnetic field produced around it represented by dotted line and its direction is clockwise. Okay, is this clear? Magnetic field?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now apply the second one thing. Consider conductor is carrying current toward the observer, that is toward you. So apply here right hand thumb rule. Again point the thumb toward you and then wrap the fingers. You will find you are wrapping finger in which direction?
Anti-clockwise.
Anti-clockwise. Correct. Anti-clockwise direction. So see here I have denoted magnetic field around the conductor is in anti-clockwise direction. Okay. So whenever through any conductor you pass current around it, it produces magnetic field and whatever the magnetic field produced around that conductor, its direction you can find out using right hand thumb rule. Okay. Now next is in this both the cases what we have assumed, conductor is straight and parallel to ground and you can hold it perpendicular to face plane of your face, isn't it? Now consider if like this is the case, here conductor is not straight. What is done? It's a electromagnet. You can consider this rectangular shape is nothing but you can consider it any magnetic material, silicon steel, cast iron, cast steel, any magnetic material you take out of this. Okay. Now around it you wound one copper conductor and pass some current through this conductor. the direction in which you have wound this conductor, in the same direction current will flow. See, all of you can observe, whatever is the direction in which coil is wound, in the same direction current is flowing through that coil. So here reverse is the case now. Now here also current you are passing through the conductor. So round it produces magnetic field. Here also you have to apply right hand thumb rule. But now what you have to do here? Fingers you have to wrap here in the direction of current of right hand. So right hand fingers you wrap in the same direction the coil is wound or the current is flowing. So what you will find, thumb is pointing toward right or toward left?
Left.
Very good, toward left. Thumb you can find it is pointing toward left. What does it mean? Magnetic lines of force, they start from left end of the electromagnet and they move toward right end of the magnet like this. So like this will be the direction of magnetic lines of force produce. This is the direction, all of you can see here, and this total number of magnetic lines of force is called as magnetic flux, or you can, it is denoted by phi, unit is Weber, or you can say magnetic field is produced around this electromagnet. So all of you know magnetic lines of force, they start from north pole and they move towards south pole, and they can complete the path through magnet also. Whenever they move from north to south, see, from north they started and they are moving towards south, and they can complete its path through magnet also. While moving from north to south pole, they always prefer minimum opposition path. Same in electric circuit, like current always prefers minimum opposition path. Similarly, in magnetic circuits also, magnetic flux always prefers minimum opposition path. Okay, so your thumb is pointing toward left. When you apply right hand thumb rule, means magnetic lines of force will start from left. Nothing but what is the conclusion? And all of you know these lines always start from north and they move towards south. What is the conclusion? Means this pole of the electromagnet will act as a north pole and another one will act as a south pole. So you can find out which one pole is acting as a north and which one pole is acting as a south pole using right hand thumb rule. Direction of magnetic field, magnetic lines of force also you will get. Okay, so now this magnetic lines of force, they always prefer minimum opposition path. Now here in transformer also will happen the same thing. See here AC voltage you have applied, AC current is flowing through this coil, it will produce rounded magnetic field. Now can you tell me whatever is the coil, its direction over here, apply right hand thumb rule here, and can you tell me in which direction current will flow through this central limb? Upward or downward? Apply here right hand thumb rule and wrap the fingers in the same direction as that of coil. So thumb is pointing in upward direction or downward direction?
Upward.
Very good. Upward means what? Here through this transformer magnetic core, through this side limb, left one on your left hand side, through this flux will flow in upward direction. Through this limb it is flowing in upward direction, then it will come like this. Means what is the conclusion? Through this core, in which direction the flux is flowing? Clockwise,
Upward to downward. Clockwise.
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 Okay, it is moving in clockwise direction. Now see here what is happening. You consider around this core, around this coil, air is there. What is the relative permeability of air?
1.
Very good, it is 1. Okay, so what is happening here? whatever the total flux produced by primary winding, not 100% flux will flow through core. Some percentage of flux will complete its path through air also, like this. Why? Because air relative permeability is 1. Whatever the silicon steel material we are using here for the manufacturing of transformer core, its relative permeability is in some thousands. I think about 3000 it is approximately, somewhat slightly less or more than 3000. So you can compare, consider karo 3000. So 3000 relative permeability of magnetic core material and a relative permeability of air is 1. Lots of difference is there, isn't it? So for conductor we have seen why we use conductor for the flow of current, because their conductivity is very high, nothing but their resistance is very less. Formula of resistance we know, rho L by A. This is for the metals and conductor. There are some similarities in electric circuit and magnetic circuit. Like current in electric circuit is, you can say, equivalent to flux in magnetic circuit. Like current always prefers minimum opposition path. Similarly, flux also in magnetic circuit prefers minimum opposition path. We use copper, aluminium for the flow of current. Why? Because their conductivity is very high, resistance is very less. That's why. Similarly, in magnetic material, silicon steel, again cast steel, cast iron, these magnetic materials are used for the flow of flux. Why? Because their relative permeability is very high. See here, this is the formula. You can see there is some similarities there between the two formula. Here L by A, here also L by A. Here rho is there, a specific resistance. Here 1 by mu is there. What is mu 0 into mu R? It's a mu permeability, where mu 0 is absolute permeability and mu R is relative permeability. In electric circuit, resistance of conductor is less. In magnetic circuit, reluctance of magnetic materials like silicon steel, cast iron, cast steel, their reluctance is less. Resistance in electric circuit is equivalent to reluctance in magnetic circuit. Means these two are not equal, their meaning is somewhat similar. That is the case that I mean to say. So reluctance also same as that of resistance. That is reluctance, it's the opposition offered by magnetic material to the flow of flux. Okay, why I am comparing? Because it becomes easy for you to understand. Resistance capital R, opposition to the flow of current by metal. Similarly, capital S, it's the opposition to the flow of flux by silicon steel, cast iron, cast steel, these magnetic material. Now this reluctance, all of you can see the formula L divided by mu 0 mu R A, where mu 0 and mu R absolute permeability and relative permeability. So opposition offered by magnetic material to the flow of flux is inversely proportional to relative permeability. Now I told you relative permeability of silicon steel is very high, in some thousands it is, and of air is very less, only 1 it is. Now can you tell me which one material will offer less opposition to the flow of flux, air or silicon steel?
Silicon steel.
Very good.
Silicon steel.
Very good. Silicon steel will offer very less opposition to the flow of flux. And that's why that transformer magnetic core is made up of silicon steel. Because silicon steel offers very less opposition, and that is expected over there. Okay, which one material you have to use there? Which offers less opposition to the flow of flux. Okay, now here, so what will happen now? Whatever is the total flux produced by primary winding, here flux always prefers minimum opposition path. So can you tell me maximum flux will flow through core or maximum flux will complete its path through air? Now,
Through core.
very good. Maximum flux will flow through core. Why? Because its relative permeability is very high. Opposition will be very less. That's why. And for air, its relative permeability is not 0. It is 1. So that's why opposition offered by air to the flow of flux is not infinity. It is very high, but it will not be infinity. Means flux can complete its path through air. Like current cannot complete its path through air, but flux can. Okay. So what will happen in this case now? Whatever the flux produced by primary winding, very less percentage of flux completes its path through air. And maximum percentage of flux completes its path through core. So 95 to 98% flux completes its path through core, and that is called as useful flux. Okay, and 2 to 5% flux completes its path through air, and that is called as leakage flux. So whatever the total flux produced by primary winding, it's a some leakage flux and some useful flux is there. Okay, means you can say leakage flux plus useful flux is total flux. Or what you can say, whatever the total flux produced by primary winding, 2 to 5% flux completes its path through air, which is called as leakage flux, and 95 to 98% of flux completes its path through core, which is called as useful flux. And whatever the flux completing its path through core, this one flux only helps in producing the output, and that's why it is called as useful flux. Okay, whatever the flux completing its path through air, it don't help in producing the output, and that's why it is called as leakage flux. Clear the concept? What do you mean by leakage flux, useful flux? Up to this, any difficulty? Okay, okay. Now see here, working principle and all the things we are going to see. What we are going to assume, no leakage flux is there. Means what? Actually, two in the books you will find one term is their ideal transformer, another term is their practical transformer. Now every transformer is a practical transformer. None of the transformer can be ideal. Ideal transformer is the one whose leakage flux is 0, whose copper winding resistance is also 0, and it is not practically possible, isn't it? Okay, so in the books you will find ideal transformer term is there, some theory part you will find for that, but none of the transformer is ideal. Because every transformer, it is having some leakage flux. Every transformer, its copper winding, its resistance of primary and secondary copper winding will be very, very less, but it will not be 0. That is not possible. Okay, but right now, whatever the working principle we are going to see, or some derivation, for that what we are going to assume, neglect about the leakage flux. Neglect this, because that will be very less, 2 to 5%. So ignore it. Okay, now you consider the case AC voltage you have applied. AC current will flow through primary winding. It will produce now flux, changing flux it will be, and that changing flux is flowing through core. Ignore the leakage flux because that is very less. Now here AC voltage you have applied, AC current is flowing through primary winding and one number of turns. It will produce as magnetic field, and this changing magnetic field will flow through magnetic core in clockwise direction, isn't it? Now this changing magnetic field, is it coming in contact with N2 number of turns? Primary and secondary winding both are wound or core, and now flux is flowing through core. So can we say this changing flux is coming in contact with secondary turns? Very good. It is coming in contact with secondary number of turns, isn't it? So what will happen as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction here? turns are stationary, N2 number of turns, that is the secondary winding is stationary. Transformer is a static device. None of the part of transformer rotates. Transformer core is stationary, its winding is stationary, windings are stationary. Whatever is that outer tank, that is also stationary, isn't it? So this secondary winding is stationary, core is stationary, but whatever is the changing flux flowing through the core, that flux is not stationary, it's a changing flux. So as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, whenever there is a relative motion between magnetic field and conductor, either conductor is rotating or field is rotating, what will happen according to Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction? All of you know Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. You have studied it in 12th. Conductor is stationary, field is changing. What will happen?
Eddy current will produce.
EMF is induced.
Very good. EMF get induced where? EMF get induced where? यहाँ पे कहाँ पे EMF induced होगा?
In the N2 side, on the N2 side.
Correct. Very good. In
second coil.
correct. In secondary winding. See here. This is the changing flux. It is coming in contact with N2 number of turns. So as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, EMF get induced in N2 number of turns, and that is marked as E2. Okay. Here capital E2 I have denoted, means it's a RMS value of induced EMF in secondary winding, and we'll derive the expression for that, E2. Okay. Now here on secondary, E2 is the EMF induced as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, isn't it? 1 minute. Okay, so EMF get induced in secondary winding. Now here secondary, all of you can see it is open or closed one.
Open.
Very good, it is open, isn't it? So across this secondary, if I connect one voltmeter, what will happen? It will give you some reading, and that is equal to this E2 value. I told you for fifth one experiment, whatever the transformer you are going to use, it is having specification 110 volts / 220 volt, isn't it? So what does it mean? This one voltage we are going to apply across primary 110 volt, and across secondary, this 220 volt you will get at no load condition. No load condition means no load is applied across secondary. See here, this one is the case. Secondary is open and EMF will get induced, and that will be approximately equal to 220. Okay, if you connect one voltmeter across secondary, it will give you some reading, and that will be nearly equal to 219 or 220 or 218, and that is called as E2, no load voltage, because no load is connected across secondary. That's why it is called as no load voltage. Okay. Now E2 is the EMF induced, means what is the conclusion? Even if secondary is open, does EMF get induced in it or not? Here secondary is open, but still EMF get induced in it or not?
It will get induced.
It get induced. Okay. Now will current flow through secondary? Will current flow through secondary?
No, ma'am.
Very good. Why? Why not?
Open circuit.
Very good. Because it's open circuit. So, it's an open circuit, so no current will flow through secondary winding. Now what you have to do here? Connect some load across secondary winding. So this is the up to this, it's a no load condition. Everyone got it? At no load, no current will flow through secondary winding, but EMF get induced here. Okay. Now what is happening? See, connect some load across secondary. What I have connected across secondary? One lamp I have connected. So now the moment I connect lamp here, is circuit on secondary side closed one or not?
Yes, ma'am, closed.
Correct, it is closed one, means EMF already get induced E2 and now the circuit is closed one. So will current flow through secondary winding and lamp?
Yes.
Current will flow because circuit is closed one, isn't it? If you observe here, whatever the current flowing through lamp, same current is flowing through N2 number of turns. Means what we can say, load current IL, load current is marked as I suffix L. I suffix L is a load current and I2 is a secondary winding current. So current flowing through lamp, load current IL, and current flowing through secondary winding I2, both are same. Okay. Now here, so lamp will glow because current is flowing, isn't it, through this lamp. Now, means what does it mean? Electricity or voltage, you can say you have applied across primary, but it gets transferred on secondary, isn't it? So this is called as the working principle of a transformer. You apply, means transformer, it's a static device. It transmits electrical energy from primary to secondary with the change in voltage and current. But what's about frequency? Remains constant. Frequency remains constant. So working principle, is this clear to everyone? Okay, AC voltage you apply here. AC current will flow through primary winding. It will produce changing magnetic field. That changing magnetic field completes its path through core. Now this changing magnetic field comes in contact with N2 number of turns. So as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, EMF get induced in secondary. EMF get induced in secondary winding. Now here circuit is, if open, no current will flow, but if the circuit is closed one, current will start to flow through secondary. Means it transmitted electrical energy from primary to secondary with the change in voltage and current, but frequency remains constant. Up to this, everyone got its working principle. It works on which principle? Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. Clear up to this? Okay. Now see, if you observe here, whatever this changing flux, I told you it is coming in contact with N2 number of turns and E2 get induced, isn't it? As per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. Now, if you observe, whatever the flux produced by primary winding, as it is completing its path through core, it is coming in contact with the turns N1 itself, isn't it? Is this changing flux coming in contact with N1 number of turns?
Yes, ma'am.
So what will happen as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction? N1 turns are stationary and changing flux coming in contact with it. So what will happen as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction?
EMF will induce.
EMF
Very
is
good.
induced.
Very good. EMF will get induced in primary winding also, and that is marked as E1. So see here, AC voltage you apply across primary. AC current will flow through primary winding. It produces changing flux which completes its path through core. Only 2%, 5% is the leakage flux. So forget about that. So consider the flux flowing through core. Now when the flux completes its path through core, it comes in contact with N2 number of turns, and E2 is the EMF induced in N2 number of turns. Same flux is coming in contact with N1 number of turns also, and as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, EMF also get induced in primary winding, and that is called as E1. Okay, so can you tell me here, out of this E1 and E2, which one is self-induced EMF and which one is mutually induced EMF?
E1 is
E1 is
self-induced EMF and
self-induced.
E2 is mutually induced EMF.
Very good, very good. Why? Because see, flux is produced by n1 number of turns, and the same flux comes in contact with same turns and EMF get induced. That's why self-induced EMF. E1 is called, isn't it? But if you observe this flux phi1, it is produced by N1 I1, that is N1 number of turns, and this flux comes in contact with N2 number of turns and EMF get induced in E2 in N2 number of turns E2. That's why it is called as mutually induced EMF. Means flux produced by another turns and EMF get induced in N2 turns. Flux produced by N1 turns and EMF get induced in N2 turns, mutually induced EMF. We'll derive the expression for this self and mutually induced EMF. Okay. So what will happen now as per Lane's law? If you observe as per Lane's law, what will happen with these two? It will oppose the cause producing it. Now E1 is induced because of phi1. Phi1 is induced because of I1 and I1 is induced because of V1. What does it mean? E1 get induced nothing but because of V1. So as per Lenz's law, what E1 will do? It will oppose the cause producing it. Means what do you think? Whatever is the E1 get induced, it will assist V1 or it will be in opposite direction with V1.
In opposite direction.
Very
In
good.
opposite.
Very good. It will be in opposite direction with V1, isn't it? And if you observe on primary winding, what's about the copper resistance of primary winding? How much? What symbol? Which variable we use for that? Resistance of copper winding on primary, R1. Resistance of copper winding on secondary, R2. Now, resistance of primary copper winding R1, current flowing through them is I1. So what is I1 R1? It's a voltage drop across primary winding because of copper resistance, isn't it? So means what is the conclusion? Voltage equation you can write now on primary side. Whatever the input voltage you apply across primary V1, how it is utilized? It is utilized to overcome E1 because as per Lenz's law, E1 acts in opposite direction with V1, isn't it? And also this V1, it has to overcome the I1 R1 drop. Means what will be the expression on primary side? Whatever the voltage you apply V1, it is utilized to overcome the I1 R1 drop and it is utilized to overcome the effect of E1. So voltage equation on primary side, is this clear to you, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, got it? So this is the voltage equation on primary side. Now what will happen on secondary side? See, voltage equation we'll see on secondary side. On secondary side, how much is the mutually induced EMF in N2 number of turns?
E2.
E2, very good. That is E2, isn't it? What is the copper resistance of secondary winding?
R2.
R2, very good. Current flowing through them is?
I2.
I2, very good. Okay. So, what do you think? Suppose here I have connected one lamp, isn't it? Across secondary. Now consider karo, this E2 is 220 volt. E2 is 220 volt. पूरा 220 वोल्ट लैम्प के अक्रॉस जाएगा. आई एम गोइंग टू कनेक्ट वन वोल्टमीटर अक्रॉस लैम्प. ये देखो, ये मैंने यहाँ पे कंसीडर करो एक लैम्प के अक्रॉस आई हैव कनेक्टेड वन वोल्टमीटर. ओके, एंड ईएमएफ इंड्यूस्ड इन सेकेंडरी वाइंडिंग इज 220 वोल्ट. सो पूरा 100% ऑफ इट गेट अप्लाइड अक्रॉस लैम्प और एनी लोड और लेस. 220 वोल्ट इंड्यूस हो रहा है सेकेंडरी वाइंडिंग में. पूरा 100% जाएगा लोड के अक्रॉस या लेस जाएगा? लेस जाएगा. व्हाई लेस? बिकॉज सेकेंडरी वाइंडिंग में ईएमएफ इंड्यूस हो रहा है 220 वोल्ट E2. सेकेंडरी वाइंडिंग इज मेड अप ऑफ कॉपर, so I2 R2 drop will be there, isn't it? So what happens? Consider that I2 R2 drop is 5 volt. So 220 minus 5 volt, that is 215 volt. 215 volt will get applied across load. Is this clear to everyone? for what purpose we are using the transformer? To apply some voltage across load, isn't it? And maximum voltage it should apply. This drop I2 R2 drop should be very less. Then only it will apply maximum voltage across load, isn't it? So for that purpose, how you can minimize the drop? R2 must be less. R2 must be less. If R2 is less, then I2 R2 drop will be less and more voltage will get applied across load, isn't it? So what is the equation on secondary side? See here, whatever the EMF get induced in secondary winding, some percentage of it get drop across copper winding resistance and the rest is applied across load. Is this clear to you? Voltage across load is marked as V2 or VL. Any of it you can use the symbol. E2 is mutually induced EMF in secondary winding. I2 R2 is a voltage drop across secondary winding because of its copper resistance. And V2 or VL is a voltage across load. Got the voltage equation on secondary side?
Yes, ma'am.
गुड. मैं अभी एक मिनट है, मैं चैट बॉक्स में फिर से अटेंडेंस लिंक पोस्ट करती हूँ. ऑल ऑफ यू प्लीज मार्क योर अटेंडेंस. अगेन एवरीवन प्लीज मार्क योर अटेंडेंस. Everyone? Okay. So two equations you got it on primary side and on secondary side. Any difficulty up to this? Means when you
No,
connect, when you connect some load across transformer, this is the equation on secondary. And on primary, whether you connect load or not, this is the equation on primary. So working principle is done. Transformer voltage equation we have seen. Leakage flux its effect we have seen. Okay. Now when transformer is at no load, right, when transformer is at no load condition, means this one, no load is connected across transformer. 1 minute, I will show you this one. No load is connected. What is the value of I2? Here I2 is how much? Consider karo transformer secondary is open, means no load is connected across transformer, means transformer is on no load. I2 will be 0. Very good. I2 is 0. Now in this equation you put I2 is equal to 0. What you will get? E2 is equals to
E2.
E2 is equals to V2 you will get.
V2.
Means at no load condition, no load is there, I2 is 0, so E2 is equals to V2 you can say. See here I have written at no load condition I2 is 0, is E2 is equals to V2. Now here one lamp is connected, isn't it? Soon we are going to derive expression for E1 and E2. Derivation of E1 and E2 soon we are going to see. You will find expressions are 4.44 F phi m N1 for E1, 4.44 F phi m N2 for E2. Now you will observe all parameters in this expression are constant. Flux is also constant. I will explain you why all parameters are constant. So what does it mean? As all parameters in this equation are constant, what is the conclusion? E1 and E2 also remains constant. You don't put any load on transformer or continuously you go on changing this load from no load condition up to full load. Still E1 and E2 remains constant. Okay. Now E1 and E2 are constant and whatever the voltage we apply on primary side of transformer, practically it is constant everywhere. Manually we apply 110 volt or whatever is the voltage range. Suppose I am going to apply 110 volt and that is you will find in practical almost all applications it is constant. Manually we are going to keep it constant. Means what's about all the voltages V1, E1 and E2. All voltages are constant. Their frequency is same, 50 hertz. If you see frequency of supply voltage is 50 hertz, then you will find frequency of E1, E2, and whatever is the voltage across load, V2 or VL, its voltage, that frequency is also 50 hertz. Okay, so what is happening here? All these three voltages are constant. V1, E1 and E2 are constant. Now, suppose here only one lamp I have switched on. Now I am going to switch on another lamp. Then third lamp, fourth lamp. Can you tell me how the lamp get connected? In series or in parallel? All lamps. Initially I have switched on one, then second, then third, fourth. So how all lamps get connected in series or in parallel? What is expected? Voltage across these lamps should be constant or changing?
In parallel.
In parallel. Very good. Because at your home also, whenever you switch on any load, why it get connected in parallel? Why? Because then only voltage across each will be same, 220 volt, isn't it? So here also the same thing will happen. Whenever you switch on load across transformer, it get connected in parallel. First lamp, then in parallel with second lamp. Now consider I am increasing the load on transformer. First lamp, then second lamp, third lamp, fourth lamp. Okay, each and every lamp is of 100 watt. Means we are increasing here load. Means increased load will require increased power or less power. Increased load requires increased power or less power.
Increased power.
Increased power, isn't it? It requires increased power. Now load you are increasing, load get connected in parallel. So what will happen with total load resistance? We are not talking about the resistance of copper winding. R1, R2, resistance of primary and secondary copper winding, these are different things. We are talking about the load resistance. Now here load on transformer, you are increasing. Load get connected in parallel. So what do you think total load resistance? 4 and 4 ohm in parallel. What is the resultant? Suppose मैंने 4 और 4 ओहम पैरेलल में कनेक्ट किया है, तो व्हाट इज द देयर इक्विवेलेंट?
2
ma'am.
2 ohm. Means what is the conclusion? As you go on increasing load and as load get connected in parallel, total load resistance will decrease or increase?
Decrease.
Decrease.
Total load resistance is decreasing here, isn't it? And what is the case with E2? Is it constant? I told you, no? V1, E1 and E2 are they constant? V1, E1 and E2, they are constant. Okay, so E2 is constant on secondary and load you are increasing, total load resistance decreases. What will happen with current I2? Voltage is constant,
Increase.
E2. Yes, current will?
Increase.
Very good. Current will increase. Got it? Is this clear to everyone? Means what is the conclusion? Load on transformer, you increase, current increases. This one point you keep in your mind. Load on transformer, you increase, current increases. Those who are answering the questions, very good students. You are what we can say IQ level, very good. Means you can think, you can answer, very good thing it is. Technical concepts, very good, all of you. Okay. So I2 is increasing. I2 increases and that's why transformer supply increased power to increase load. It can supply increased power to increase load. Now here as I2 increases, I1 also will increase. You will find as I2 increases, I1 also increases by same proportion. and that's why flux in the core remains constant. This transformer is called as a constant flux machine. Flux in the core of a transformer remains constant. How? See, as load increases, I2 increases. Is this clear to everyone up to this? ये पॉइंट समझ
Yes,
में आ गया?
ma'am.
ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
see, load we are increasing, I2 increases. Okay. Now we'll see how I1 increases. Why I1 increases? So transformer is called as a constant flux machine. Flux in the core of transformer remains constant. Whatever the flux flowing through core is always constant. This load, you don't put any load here, or you go on continuously changing this lamp. Initially 0 lamp, then 1, 2, 3, so on, up to full load. You go on increasing. Still, what will happen? Flux in the core always remains constant. Why it is so? See, V1 you apply, I1 flows, flux produced in flux produced by primary winding that flows through core. This changing flux comes in contact with N1 and N2 number of turns, E1 and E2 get induced. Okay, now up to E2 get induced, whatever the flux flowing through core is only because of I1, because no I2 is there, isn't it? Up to this moment, I2 is not there. So whatever the flux flowing is only because of I1, isn't it? Now what is happening? The moment E2 get induced in secondary winding, and the secondary winding is closed one, current will flow through secondary winding. The moment current starts to flow through secondary winding, I2, will it produce its own flux? Yeah, I2 खुद का flux produce करेगा क्या?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, right. It will produce its own flux, isn't it? Now I2 will also produce its own flux. Now, as per Lenz's law, what will happen? What consider I2 is producing the flux phi2. As per Lenz's law, what will happen? Phi2, its direction will be such as it will oppose the force producing it. Phi2 is produced because of I2. I2 is produced because of E2. E2 is produced because of the flux which is produced by N1 I1, isn't it? Means if flux because of I1 is flowing in clockwise direction, so as per Lenz's law, according to Lenz's law, what do you think? Phi2, its direction will be same as that of this earlier one flux, or in opposite direction?
Opposite direction.
Opposite direction, isn't it? So what will happen as per Lenz's law? Direction of this E2, I2 and Phi2 will be such as Phi2 will oppose the force producing it. So if earlier flux is flowing in clockwise direction, this Phi2 will flow in anti-clockwise direction, isn't it? Now the moment I2 produces flux Phi2 in anti-clockwise direction, what happens in transformer in primary side? Up to this moment, I1 only was flowing, isn't it? I1 was flowing. The moment I2 produces Phi2 in opposite direction, primary takes additional current. See here, primary is taking now additional current I1 dash. And what will be the magnitude of this I1 dash? How much additional current primary takes from supply, constant supply voltage V1, so that whatever the flux produced by I1 dash, its magnitude, Phi1 dash, this Phi1 dash, its magnitude will be same as that of Phi2. And their directions are different. So what will happen with Phi2 and Phi1 dash? दोनों का मैग्नीट्यूड सेम है एंड इन अपोजिट डायरेक्शन विद ईच अदर, तो रिजल्टेंट फ्लक्स फिर कितना रहेगा कोर में? व्हाट विल बी द नॉट जीरो,
Only five.
हाँ, अर्लियर वन फ्लक्स. ये क्या है? अर्लियर वन फ्लक्स है ना, ये फाई कोर प्लस ये एडिशनल फ्लक्स इंड्यूस हुआ है, but this additional flux is in opposite direction of and of same magnitude with phi2, means these two will cancel each other effect. So resultant flux is how much? जो पहले I2 इंड्यूस होने के पहले जो फ्लो हो रहा था वही फ्लो होगा. Is this clear? Means what is the conclusion? flux in the core of a transformer remains constant. The moment I2 starts to flow and producing some flux, primary takes additional current I1 dash, and how much I1 dash primary will take, so that flux produced by it will be phi1 dash, and it is of equal magnitude that of phi2. So that's why flux in the core remains constant. Clear? This one point?
Yes,
Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, means what is happening here? Load you increase, I2 increases, and at the, if I2 increases, at the same time I1 also will increase. I2 increases here, at the same time I1 will increase. Okay, so load you go on increasing on transformer, load get connected in parallel, total load resistance will be less. Means will go on decreasing. E2 is constant, resistance is decreasing here, so that's why I2 increases. And the moment I2 increases, I1 also on primary will increase. Means what is the conclusion? Load on transformer you go on increasing, I1, I2 increases, and flux in the core remains constant. You go on changing load on transformer from no load condition to full load condition, flux in the core remains constant. Means, can you tell me at this is the case about as we go on increasing the load. Now, when no load is there on the transformer, what is the value of I2?
0.
0. I2 is 0. Then can you tell me I1 will be what? I1 will be what? Maximum or minimum at no load condition? See, as we go on increasing the load, I1 and I2 both increases. And when it's a no load, I2 will be 0, means I1 will be maximum at no load condition or minimum?
Minimum.
Minimum. Very
Minimum.
good. Okay, I1 is minimum. Means at no load condition, I1 is minimum and I2 is 0. And what's about R1? R1 is very less, isn't it? R1, copper windings, that is expected, resistance of copper winding should be less, and accordingly only they are designed. So R1 is also less, and as at no load condition, I1 is also minimum. So at no load condition, when secondary is open, I2 is 0. That's why if I2 is 0, what you will get in this condition? In this equation, E2 will be equal to V2, isn't it? This one we have seen. And as no load is there, so I1 is very, very less or minimum. So I1 R1 drop also will be very less. So what will happen with this equation? You can neglect I1 R1 drop at no load condition. And if I am neglecting I1 R1 drop at no load condition, what equation I'll get between V1 and E1 both are?
Approximately equal.
Equal. Clear? Okay, so means when the transformer is loaded, these two equations you have to use. If some load is there on transformer, E2 minus I2 R2 is equals to V2 is equals to VL on secondary side, and on primary side V1 is equals to E1 plus I1 R1. But when the transformer is at no load condition, when secondary is open, then I2 is 0. That's why I2 R2 drop will be 0. That's why this equation you will get E2 is equals to V2. See, E2 is equal to V2 at no load condition, isn't it? And at no load condition, as I2 is 0, I1 is minimum, and R1 is less. So I1 R1 drop is very, very less. You can neglect it. And if you are neglecting it at no load condition, I1 R1 drop, what you will get? V1 is equals to E1. Means what is the conclusion? When the transformer is loaded, use these two equations. And when the transformer is at no load condition, use these two equations. Any difficulty with this?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then the next part. So working principle is done. This is done. Okay. Now we'll derive the expressions for sometimes in the numerical, you have to nothing is given whether the transformer is loaded or not. Then you have to assume it is at no load condition. And then there to find out some unknown values, you have to use this relationship. I'll take the numerical. then will be clear to you. Okay. Now we'll derive the expression for E1 and E2. E1 is self-induced EMF and E2 is mutually induced EMF. Okay. We'll show you again this one image. See here. Here. N1 and N2 are primary and secondary winding turns. Their copper resistance is R1 and R2. V1 is the applied voltage across primary, and I1, I2 are the current flowing through primary and secondary winding, isn't it? And this is the changing flux phi. Okay, so here E1 is induced in total N1 number of turns, isn't it? And E2 also induced in total N2 number of turns. And it works on Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. Okay, so these things we'll use to derive the expression for E1 and E2. Now see here, E1 and E2 means RMS value. Capital E1 I have written, capital E2 I have written. Okay, so see, changing applied voltage is V of t Vm sin of omega t, single phase AC voltage. So whatever the flux flowing through core, that also will be sinusoidal and AC. So it expression I can write phi of t as a phi m sin of omega t. Same angular frequency it will have. Omega is 2 pi f. Now, as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, you know E is equals to minus n d phi by dt. Minus sign is because of Lenz's law, isn't it? So this one expression as per Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, all of you know. Now here, if I consider, I will first find out EMF induced per turn. Then if I am going to find out EMF induced per turn, then what will be the value of N you have to take? N will be
1.
1. Okay, right. N will be 1. So put here N as 1 and say it's a EMF induced per turn. Now flux value you have phi of t, phi m sin of omega t. Put it here and differentiate it with respect to t. Derivative of sin of omega t is cos of omega t into omega, isn't it? So see here, EMF induced per turn is this one. Here I have written small e of t. Small e means it's an instantaneous voltage equation for EMF induced per turn. It's a cosine waveform, isn't it? So E of t, Em cos of omega t. Okay, so means its peak value is what? Phi m into omega is the peak. If this one is the peak of EMF induced per turn, then what will be the RMS divided by √2, isn't it? So see, maximum value of induced EMF per term is phi m omega. Omega you can write 2 pi f. Now if you divide it by √2, you will get the RMS value of induced EMF per turn, isn't it? So see, RMS value peak divided by √2. So simplify this. 2 divided by √2, you will get 4.44 f phi m. Means 2 by √2 into pi, you will get 4.44. So we got it in the induced EMF, its RMS value per turn is 4.44 f phi m. Now this is the EMF induced per turn. How many turns are there on primary? How many turns are there on primary?
N1.
N1. So per turn में अगर इतना
N1.
EMF induce होता है, तो how much will get induced in N1 number of turns? You have to multiply it by.
Multiply into N1.
Correct.
N1.
Correct. You have to multiply it by N1, and same on secondary side. On secondary side, N2 number of turns are there, so multiply it by N2. Will be the EMF induced in N2 number of turns, isn't it? So got the expressions. E1 4.44 f phi m N1 and E2 4.44 f phi m N2. Got it? Any difficulty? Derivation? No one will ask you derivation in MCQ. Only keep these things in your mind. Okay, because MCQ type pattern is there. Based on these equations, theory questions, numerical, you will get asked. So E1 is equals to 4.44 f phi m N1 and E2 is 4.44 f phi m N2. Now, if you observe here 4.44, it's a constant. Supply frequency in India 50 Hertz constant, isn't it? On primary side also frequency 50 Hertz, on secondary side also 50 Hertz frequency. Now, what I told you, flux in the core remains constant or changing?
Constant.
It is constant. We have seen just now, as you go on changing load from load to full load condition, the moment I2 increases in same proportion, I1 also increases. So flux in the core remains constant. So transformer, it's a constant flux machine. Means if flux in the core constant, then its peak value is also constant. And once transformer get designed, manufactured, its manufacturing is done over. So what's about N1 and N2 turns? That are also constant. Primary turns, secondary turns, constant. Means if all parameters here are constant, what do you think E1 and E2 also will be?
Constant.
Constant. Okay, got it? Means what is the conclusion? E1 and E2 is constant and supply voltage V1 we used to keep constant. Now take the ratio E2 by E1. What you will get? E2 by E1 will be what?
N2 by N1.
Very good. N2 by N1, and it is called as capital K transformation ratio. Okay, capital K E2 by E1 is equals to N2 by N1. Now, whatever the transformer you are using for fifth experiment, its kVA rating, you know, its kVA rating is 1 kVA. So why rating of transformer is given in kVA and not in kilowatt? So that is the question. So what is the formula for active power? What is the formula for active power? We have studied it in second unit. P is equals to VI cos phi.
Cos phi.
Now, if you see any motor you take, like in fan motor is used, in food processor motor is there, isn't it? So whenever you switch on, means you are giving their electrical input to that motor and you are getting mechanical output. Fan is rotating that food processor, that starts to rotate, isn't it? Means that knob where you put the pot, that one starts to rotate, means you are getting mechanical output. Means what is the conclusion? For any motor, electrical is the input and mechanical is the output. Okay, now for motor to operate, electrical input is required and its output is mechanical. So motor itself is a load. So when motor get manufactured, its motor power factor also we know, and motor voltage range and current range also know. That's why any motor, if you see its nameplate, you check. You will find on the nameplates in the specifications given it's a 5 HP motor or 1 kilowatt motor. Watt you can convert to HP or HP to watt, isn't it? Means 1 kilowatt motor means it's which one power rating is given? Active power rating of that motor is given, because motor itself is a load. Motor power factor is known, voltage range and current range both are known. That's why for motor on its nameplate you can find kilowatt or HP. But what is the case with transformer and generator? Transformer and generator, in both the cases, which one load we put across transformer or across generator? Electrical load we put. Like at your home, you continuously make tube light, fans, heater, food processor, iron on and off. Isn't it? Means you can see this is all load is across transformer, across generator. Means load across transformer, load across generator is continuously changing. Okay, it continuously changes. So cos phi is not known there because it depends on load, isn't it? And load continuously changes, so cos phi also continuously changes. So cos phi is unknown. But once you manufacture transformer or generator, its voltage range we know, current range we know. And that's why for motor, for generator and transformer, if you see its nameplate, on nameplate you can find its specifications, its rating is given only in volt amperes. Why? Because cos phi is unknown there. But what happens with motor? Motor itself is a load. Its output is mechanical. And power factor is there only for electrical term and not for mechanical things. Isn't it? So that's why for motor, its power rating is given in terms of VI cos phi, that is watt, kilowatt, HP. But what happens with transformer and generator? Load continuously on transformer and generator go on changing. So cos phi is unknown. but V range and I range is known. That's why in transformer and generator, its rating is given in kVA. K means into 10 to the power 3. M means into 10 to the power 6. Okay, so volt amperes. So what is the conclusion here? See, kVA rating of a transformer is equal to V1 I1 is equals to V2 I2. If you take V2 I2, what you will get is equals to I1 by I2. Now at so Y rating of transformer is given in kVA. Hope it is clear to all of you. Okay, so kVA rating of a transformer, primary side voltage and current is V1 I1, secondary side voltage and current is V2 I2. So primary side voltage and current is equal to voltage into current is equal to kVA rating, you can say, or V2 into I2 is equal to kVA rating, you can say. Okay, means if I simplify this, what I will get, V2 by V1 is equals to I1 by I2. Now, what we have learned for up to before this, if you remember these two equations, we have derived E2 and E1. So if you take its ratio, what we got, E2 by E1 is N2 by N1. And at no load condition, if you remember what we got when the transformer is at no load, E2 is equal to V2 and E1 is equals to V1. This one expression we got, isn't it? So which is equal to, this one is equal to transformation ratio. So I can equate this at no load condition. When the transformer is under loaded condition, only this one is true. K is equals to E2 by E1 is equals to N2 by N1. But when transformer is at no load condition, what I can say, E2 and E1 is equals to V2 by V1. And what is V2 by V1 is I1 by I2. So this is the formula for a transformation ratio. Okay, K is equals to V2 by E1, N2 by N1, V2 by V1 is equals to I1 by I2. This one you can use for no load condition only. But when the transformer is loaded, this one is true. Okay, ठीक है.